we're going to look at the important topic of missing data. Missing data can be explicitly missing, or missing data can be implicitly missing. Here's a data set that gives an example of both. Look at the return for the fourth quarter of 2015. It's explicitly missing. We have NA, which of course is missing data in R. Look at the first quarter of 2016. It's implicitly missing. There is no NA, there is no first quarter listed. So because the return was not available for the first quarter, whoever set up this data did not put it in. Therefore, we're missing the year, the quarter, and the return for the first quarter of 2016. An explicit missing value is the presence of an absence. An implicit missing value is the absence of a presence. So if we look at the 2015 fourth quarter, that's an absent piece of data that's present. And if we look at the 2016 first quarter, that's an absence of anything being present. Let's look at some functions for dealing with missing data. So here I'm going to import into stocks the tibble that I just showed you that has both the explicit missing data for the fourth quarter of 2015 and implicit for the first quarter of 2016. If we put the years into columns, let's see how it looks first. Okay. Now this data, the way it is set up, is tidy. That is, we have a year as a variable, quarter as a variable return. Each row represents a quarter of 1 year. If we put this so that the years are in columns, spread it out, watch what happens. By putting the years in columns, the missing values become explicit. And we usually should make our missing values explicit. Notice what it did. Notice for 2016 first quarter that it still assumed the first quarter should be there, so it made it explicit. However, we might want to take advantage of the fact that we need tidy data, and so we need to gather this together. So look what we can do. Here I'm taking on line 484 through 486, I'm taking stocks, I'm piping it into spread it, which is what we're seeing right now in the console window, but then I'm gathering it back up using the key year for the years and the value of return, and look what we get. Our data is back in tidy fashion, but now we've turned the implicit missing data into explicit missing data. If we want to make every missing value implicit, we can do it like this. Now, I'm not sure why one would want to do it, but there is a way to go in the opposite direction and to make explicit missing values implicit. So let's run this line, see what it does. Notice that now the explicit values are gone. We have no missing data. Well, the only thing we did differently was added this one argument to the gather function. If it's missing, take out that row. So NA is missing, RM is remove. Remove the missing is equal to true. The complete function will look for all unique combinations of columns and then make sure all of these are contained in the data set using explicit missing values when necessary. So here are the stocks. This is in the original form with one explicit and one implicitly missing. So we're going to feed stocks, we're going to pipe it into the complete function, and we're saying that we want the years and the quarters to be complete. So what it's going to do when we do that, it's going to look at our combinations that we have and try to figure out what is missing, and it figured out correctly that the first quarter of 2016 was missing, so it made a complete combination of that and then put in an NA since it did not have the return value. Keep in mind, however, that for some patterns of implied missing values, this won't work. For example, consider if our implied missing data was always in the first quarter. So here it is. Okay, notice the first quarter is missing from both. Now if I ask for complete data, you'll know what happens. Nothing happens. Why? Because it looked for the pattern and it saw 234, 234, and it felt that all the patterns were complete, so nothing happened there. Obviously, if we wanted to, if we had a bunch of these, we could fill in a 1 for the first quarter one time, and then it would complete all the others. Let's load in the Rushmore data containing study results and take a look. I'm going to let you figure out whether these data are real or fake. So we're loading it in. Looks like we have a name, trial, and time. Let's view the data. Okay, so we have George Washington had 7 trials, and here was his time. Thomas Jefferson had 7 trials, and here were his times. Abraham Lincoln had 7 trials, here were his times, and Teddy Roosevelt had 7 trials, and here were his times. We have many missing values because it was easier to enter the data by just putting in the first name. Let's look at that one more time. I closed it a little bit too soon. So we entered in the spreadsheet the name and then trials and times, but all these rows we just left out the name. Can the tidyverse handle this? Of course it can. So let's use the fill. So we're going to feed Rushmore, we're going to pipe it to the fill function and put in name, and let's view it now. Now all the missing names have been filled in. The missing data functions we've looked at: spread and gather to make implicit missing data become explicit. Spread and gather with na.rm equals true will make missing values implicit. The complete function will repeat observed patterns in columns and make missing values explicit when needed. And the fill function will fill missing data with previous column values. As always, a lot of power in the tidyverse for dealing with data, including missing data.